much for being here. You do an album recording show and you don't know, are people going to come? Like, this time a few weeks ago, I texted to see how ticket sales were doing. They're like, we've sold 2. So thought it was just going to be 3 of us. I guess at that point I would have just showed up to your house and been like, all right, let's do some comedy, Seriously, thank you so much for being here. This has been a big year for me. I recently left my day job of 15 years to become a full-time stand-up comedian. Yeah, thank you so much. I was a youth pastor for 15 years. That's always a weird thing to tell people. Like, I understand the weird reaction. And because you never hear about youth pastors leaving their jobs. You hear about the ones that get promoted to senior pastors, and then you hear about the ones that get in trouble. So I always just like to let you all know as the crowd, I'm going to answer the 2 questions you're wondering right now. Yes, I still believe in God, and no, I didn't do that. But yeah, I was a youth pastor for 15 years. I started when I was a 19-year-old boy. I was a 19-year-old youth pastor, which is too young to be a youth pastor. Like, kids would ask me God questions. Like, that's a great question. Let me go call my youth pastor. I don't know. But then it got weirder because I grew up, and before you knew it, I was a 35-year-old single youth pastor. And that's weird. Like, you don't want your youth pastors to be single. Like, I used to be jealous of my married pastor friends. Because if a married person tells you they're a youth pastor, you're like, good for you. You must love kids. If a single person tells you they're a youth pastor, you're like, do you love kids? Like, what? Like, there are other jobs out there. Like, you all would have rather me told you I was a single serial killer. You would have been like, well, at least he's not a youth pastor. Like, there are worse things he could do. And I would try my best to be as least creepy as possible in my job. But let's be honest, sometimes you just can't. And I'll give you a perfect example. So as a youth pastor, one of the most important things you can do is go support the kids in their extracurriculars. So I would go to their sporting events. I would go to their plays and their band concerts. And it wasn't uncommon for a guy looking like me to show up to a middle school girls' volleyball game. And then, our team would score and me and all the young mothers would cheer, yay, good job. And they'd all look at me like, oh, which one's yours? And I'd be like, none of them. And the only thing creepier is if I was like, all of them. If you do go to church, I'm going to help you out with something. Take this out of your vocabulary immediately. This happened to me every week. Someone would come up to me at church like, hey, so, when are you becoming a real pastor? I'd always answer the same way. I don't know. When are you becoming a real Christian? Former youth pastor. Sometimes when I do my youth pastor jokes, I feel that people get uncomfortable because if we're honest, everyone's met that one youth pastor they just can't stand. And I just want you to know, if you're feeling that, I met all of them. I went to college with all of them. I know the person you can't stand. I know that most youth pastors are basically glorified frat boys for Jesus. I get it. And if we sat down and talked about it, all of us would have that one thing about youth pastors that they just can't stand. And I want to tell you my one thing about youth pastors that I can't stand. So this happened to me all the time. Maybe you can relate, but so as a kid, I used to go to church camp, but then as an adult, I also used to go to church camp. And there was always the same thing. The youth pastor would get up to give the sermon, and before he, preached the word of God, he'd want to show you a PowerPoint presentation about himself so that you could get to know him better. And he'd always show you that picture of him and his family, and it would be him and his wife and his 3 kids, 2 of which were adopted, so he could subtly let you know he's holier than you. And then as he's explaining his family, he'd always talk about his wife in this way, and this is my smoking hot wife. During a sermon. What am I supposed to do with that information? It's not like I can go up to you after the sermon and be like, hey, great message. And you're right. Your wife is smoking hot. I would totally do her in the confines of marriage, is what I'm saying. Can't do it. So yeah, about a year ago, I had to sit down with my pastor and tell him that I was leaving full-time ministry to go into stand-up comedy. And I'm kind of ashamed to say how arrogant I was. I was like, what are they going to do without me? They're going to have to close the church. Like, Jesus is going to have to come back early because, like, they're going to be lost. I was really worried about this conversation. So I sat down with him and I was trying to be as sensitive as possible. I was saying like what my plan was and I was reassuring everything will be fine. And this is how I feel the Spirit lead me. I was using all the church language there. And he was quiet the whole time. And I was like, I broke him. Like, I should have gotten a therapist for him. And then finally at the end, I said, well, you know, like, what do you think? And I'll never forget the 2 words my pastor told me when I told him I was leaving full-time ministry to become a stand-up comedian. He said, thank God, which was humbling. But if I'm being honest, in hindsight, we both knew that conversation was happening because a few weeks prior, I actually had an opportunity to preach at the church. And the next Monday, my pastor called me into my office, or into his office. That's how full of myself I was. I was like, yeah, welcome back to my office. He called me into his office and he said, Drew, I need you to remember when you're preaching, you are not doing a stand-up comedy routine. He's like, I need you to stop being as funny and I need you to stop pausing for people to laugh. And I was like, I completely understand. But just so we're clear, which parts did you think were funny? I am a Christian, but I've recently learned this about me. In the Christian community, I have a lot of controversial Christian opinions. I do. I'm just more open-minded, liberal, left, correct, whichever word you want to use. And I've learned my most controversial opinion, and I'll share it with you all. In the Christian community, this is one that gets me in trouble all the time. And since we're such good friends, I thought I'd just share it with you all right now. I believe with all my heart and everything that I am, that Chick-fil-A is just okay. I got some applause over here. They're loading their guns back there. It's okay, I get it. Have you ever heard a Christian brag about how often they go to Chick-fil-A? Yeah, like it's like a merit of holiness. They're like, I went to Chick-fil-A 4 times last week. As if I'm supposed to be like, man, you must have wrote the Bible. You are so holy. And you know what? It does not work the other way around. I can't be like, yeah, well, I went to McDonald's 4 times last week. They're like, we can tell. And you should stop. My problem is, look, I'll admit, they have wonderful chicken, very good. I like it, but that's all they do. And they've made like trillions upon trillions of dollars off of just one thing. And I'm sorry, I just think that's wrong. Like, you don't know this about me, but I make fantastic mac and cheese. And I'll tell you all my secret. I take those Easy Mac cups and I add bacon bits to it. Ooh, game changer. You're welcome, well. But like, I know my value. I'm not gonna go open up a restaurant, call it Living Velveeta Loca, serve just mac and cheese, and tell you I'm serving the Lord's noodles, all right? No, you know what restaurant I could get behind? The one that I absolutely love, that has my heart, and I think they're honest to a fault. Little Caesars Pizza. Do I have any Little Caesars fans out there? Yes. I have a fan base. I love Little Caesars. And their motto, hot and ready. Good's not even part of it. They ain't bragging. They're not trying to impress you. They know what they're about, and you can't complain at a Little Caesars. If you went up to a cashier at Little Caesars and like, excuse me, sir, this is just a cardboard box with pizza sauce on it. I mean, I was kind of hoping for something more. The cashier would be like, and? It is warm and in your hands. We've done our job. And you know what? I kind of like to consider myself the Little Caesars of comedy. I'll take that title. Instead of hot and ready, you guys can call me hot and sweaty. Some of you are like, he wasn't even that good. Yeah, well, how much did you pay? I showed up. Instead of hot and ready, how about on time and friendly? Here we are. Of course, everyone's favorite thing about Little Caesars, if we're being honest, is their crazy bread. Delicious, yes, with the garlic and Parmesan topping. But did you guys know about Little Caesars' secret menu item? Look, I know, I look like a guy that knows Little Caesars' secret menu item. And I do. So you can get that same topping on any pizza you want. Yeah? It's called a heart attack, which is tough to order in public. Like, Like last week, I went to the cashier and I said, yes, I'd like a pepperoni pizza with a heart attack, please. And she just looked me up and down. She's like, you'll get there. I love fast food. I love eating it, obviously. But another fun thing about fast food, I don't know if you all noticed this ever, but like the little cartoons and the mascots, the little stories they have behind each fast food. For example, like Chick-fil-A, they have the cow because he feels safe because they only eat chicken there. Little Caesar has the guy dressed up as in a toga because everyone there does drugs and it makes sense. But my favorite, Nashville, my favorite is Corky's Barbecue. Do we have any Corky's Barbecue fans? All right, yeah, their mascot is the best one. It is hilarious. It is a pig wearing a chef outfit. Like he's Corky, and he's inviting you to his barbecue. And I'm sorry, that is hysterical to me. Like I have this mental image of like Corky's friends getting super excited about this barbecue tomorrow. They're calling up, hey, Corky, what do you need, man? We can bring paper plates. We can bring drinks. Like, what do you want? We got you. We're so excited for this party. What can we bring? And then Corky's just like, just bring yourself. That joke is titled, Corky is the Jeffrey Dahmer of the pig community. Yep. Many of you probably know, I love to eat. I'm a little bit on the bigger scale. Getting fat, thank you. I'm getting down to the weight where other people are feeling comfortable telling me I'm fat, and I don't much appreciate it. I'll be honest. I was bowling a few weeks ago, and this little middle school girl 2 lanes over yells at me. She says, hey, you have the body type of a professional bowler. So I went home and I changed my Tinder dating profile to body type athletic. Bowling's a sport. And I don't want to brag too much to y'all, but I did recently just join a club. I joined the 2XL club. Pretty big deal. Yeah, I had to go get new clothing. And when I went to the back of the store, which is where they keep all their 2XL shirts, so that nobody else has to know you exist. And I went back there and I grabbed my shirt. I saw the funniest sounding shirt ever. It is a slim fit 2XL. Like, who's lying to who here shirt? The problem with getting fatter is you remember the times when you weren't as fat, okay? So like years ago, I used to love amusement parks and roller coasters. And I would always, years ago, I would go to the roller coaster and then they'd strap me in and I'd start getting a little nervous about this ride I was about to do. So this is what I did to comfort me. I would look around and I would find the fattest person on the roller coaster. And I'd look at, and I'd see them. And I'm like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. So like last summer, I went to Six Flags, got on a roller coaster. I started getting a little nervous. And for starters, it took more than one person to strap me in. So that was humbling. And then I started thinking, oh my goodness, this is about to happen. So I started looking around trying to find the fattest person there. And nobody was making me feel more comfortable. But then I started noticing all these eyes were looking back at me. As if they were saying, if he can do it, we can do it. And some people subtly let you know that they think you're fat. They do it very unpleasantly, and I don't appreciate it. Like, have you ever met someone, you didn't know much about them, but you just in that moment, you're like, I hate everything about you. A few weeks ago, I was just eating at Subway. I feel like all I'm doing is bragging to you about my food selections. But I was at Subway, and this monster across the counter from me, maybe the worst person on earth, I order my sandwich and I ask for mayo on it. And without even asking, she grabs the light mayo. Yes, sir. I gave her a look that says, do I look like a light mayo kind of guy to you? And she's like, I don't know. Like, you look like you bowl. Yeah, I love to eat. Anyone here in college? Anyone college people? College bound? Yeah? Congratulations. Oh, yeah? Okay. Okay, so may I ask, how old are you? 31. Okay, great. Good for you. You're going to really like this next joke. I went back to college at a later age too, right? And so here's what I learned. When 18 and 19-year-olds tell you they're going back to college, you're like, good for you. You're going to do great things. They're proud of you. And if we're honest, if like a 90-year-old tells us they're going back to college, we're like, why? You have 20 minutes left. Just wrap it up. But at 29, I went back to college. And people didn't know what to say to me. They were like I told these ladies at church, yeah, I'm going back to college. And they just looked at me and they said, we'll see. I don't even know what that's about. But I do like to play this fun game at church called Inappropriate Things Old Women Say. It's 10 out of 10 recommend. This is the best one that happened several years ago. I was playing this game and this woman comes up to me and she was already she was already angry at me and the conversation hadn't even started yet. And she's like, hey, I've been noticing you've been doing a lot of stand-up comedy lately, like traveling, going to open mics, telling jokes. What's all that about? And so I told her, I was like, I love to tell jokes. I love making people laugh. I'm getting really into this. I don't know, maybe one day it'll be a job. And she glared even more. She's like, well, just remember, if you're not getting paid for it, it's not a real job. And I was like, aren't you a stay-at-home mom? And she said, I am, son, and you need to move out. So when I went to full-time comedy, I had to do a very daring move as a 35-year-old man. I moved back home with my mom. Yes, thank you, single guy in the back. Here's the thing about that. It's really hard to pick up women when you live in your mom's basement. It's hard to sound hot. Homeless people feel bad for me. Bro, if you want to use my bridge, you can, because this is sad. Worst part about moving back home, back to Nashville, which is where I'm from, is I learned not long after I moved that my ex-girlfriend just got married. And here's the thing. Have you ever been dumped and then you thought to yourself, this is going to be the biggest mistake of your life. You're going to regret this forever. And then she gets married and you're like, or not. And I'll never forget how she broke up with me. She said, and I quote, it's God's will for us to break up. She literally Holy Ghosted me. I like that joke because all the women are like, we get it. We see why she... I've learned I need better standards for women. She was a really mean girlfriend. Her first name was Lucy. I didn't realize it was short for Lucifer. She was rough. So a while back, she found my stuff on YouTube at Drew Davis Comedy. And she saw my jokes about her and she called me and said, Drew, I don't appreciate that you're making jokes about me. And I was trying to be a comedy. And I was like, well, why? Is it the joke where I called you Satan? Because I've learned since then that women do not like to be called Satan. And then all she said was no, it's just that you're telling people in public that we used to date. Sometimes you hope your jokes don't get laughs. But then they do. Sorry, I'm just taking a moment to appreciate all the beautiful women that are in this audience. Give yourselves a hand for being here. And ladies, I just want you to know that I'm not a creepy person. I've learned I have to say that. I am unintentionally very creepy, but I'm a nice boy, I promise, which is what creepy people say. My problem is, with nothing but good intentions, I frequently say and do the weirdest stuff that just weirds women out. I don't mean to, but that's just, you don't look convinced. You look incredibly convinced. Let me tell you. Okay, so this happened a few weeks ago. We were doing a comedy show, full house, not a seat to be found, very sketchy dive bar. Not the kind of place that you want your girlfriend or your daughters or any woman ever to show up. But it was a very sketchy place. And I was sitting in the back next to a high top table waiting to perform. And this gorgeous girl comes up and she puts her drink on my table. And she says, may I leave my drink here? Now, what I should have said was absolutely no problem. But like I said, we were in a sketchy dive bar and I wanted her to feel safe. So when she asked if she could leave her drink there, I said, yeah, I won't drug it. So she picked her drink up and went to a different table. And you all, I wish I could say that was the creepiest thing I've ever said. But I did confess to being a former pastor, so I feel like I shouldn't lie to you. So a few years ago, I was at this comedy festival, right? And right before I performed, the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, maybe ever in existence, she performed. And she did so good. And she was so hot. And there's two things about her routine that will make this joke make sense, okay? Number one, she mentioned that she was Italian, and so am I, all right? Number two, now stay with me. This is a little bit of a weird one. Her entire routine was about incest. Y'all, she was so hot, nobody cared. We were all like, okay. So she did a great job. She performed. Then I got up and I also did a fantastic job. And I thought to myself, man, if I ever had a chance with this woman, tonight's the night, right? That wasn't the punchline, but we'll take it. So after the show, I go up to her. And fellas, a lot of us can relate. You got to say that smooth and sexy thing to impress the woman, right? So these are the words that left my mouth. I said, hey, I'm Italian, so it's like we're family. She was not as amused about that one. I recently had a friend who came out as asexual. Yes, good job. He's not here, but you can cheer for him if you want. Like, I'll let him know. So he said, yeah, I'm not attracted to men or women. And I was cool with it, but I had some questions. I said, yeah, but like we've talked about your girlfriends before. What's up with that? And so what he told me was like, look, just because you date someone doesn't mean you're attracted to them. A lot of the ladies can relate though. Yep. Free meals are free meals. And I was like, okay, I get it. Thank you. So then a few weeks later, I see this beautiful woman. And I asked her out, I was like, hey, we should go out sometime. And she goes, ugh, I'm just not attracted to you. And I said, that's not what I was asking. Turns out she was not as progressive as me. So glad it didn't work out. You guys are a nice crowd. I like you all. I 10 out of 10. I'll give you guys a 10 out of 10 grade. We don't always get to perform in front of nice crowds. Yeah, I don't think you all understand some of the crowds we perform at. I don't use this lightly, but the worst humans on earth. So like this one time, we have someone here from Alabama, right? Yeah? Okay, cool. Sorry. Nothing personal against you. Weren't in this crowd, but I was doing a show in Alabama. It was at a youth group. I was performing at a youth group. I was supposed to do 45 minutes, but 15 minutes into my set, they kicked me off. They told me I was being sexist, racist, and homophobic. Can you believe it? A church in Alabama, and they didn't give me more time? I was like, so are you gonna like Venmo me a bonus or like what? When's? But you guys are nice. And I love performing. I love that this is my full-time job now. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. The best part about performing is that the travel that comes with it, like going to different places, going to new places, doing comedy. That's the most fun about being a comedian. But I don't know if you're looking at me and being like, man, he must make tons of money. But I don't yet. So what I do when I travel is I find a lot of friends that I haven't known in a long time, and I ask if I can stay at their house. Some of my friends goes 10 years ago that I just talked to them. I knew them in college, the first go around, and now I'm calling them like, hey, I got a show in your area. Can I stay at your house? And they're so nice, except they have these new things now called children. Yeah. So they have to explain to their children who this strange man is who's staying upstairs. So like last week I was in Indianapolis. My friend, she had to explain to her 7-year-old child. She said, this is Drew. He's a professional comedian, which means people pay him to tell jokes, which I thought was awfully optimistic of her. Yeah. And so I'm making my bed that night, getting ready to, finish up. And this little 7-year-old boy shows up in his PJs looking at me. He says, hey, I know you're a professional chameleon. And I was like, go on. And he said, but I'm going to have to ask, when you're in this house, you don't say any jokes because I only have $11. Right? Y'all? That's so sweet. He thought my jokes were worth more than $11. And that is the sweetest thing anyone's ever said. Such a nice boy. You guys are a nice crowd. I feel like I can open up with you and talk about something that I've been dealing with lately. I want to tell you about the worst date I've ever been on. It happened a while ago. It was 9 years ago. All right. So I know I should be over this, but we need to talk about it because I'm not yet. All right. So we need to talk about it. So this is 9 years ago. I'm from here. So it was here in Nashville, not too far from here, actually, because I took a date to go see your favorite comedian at Zany's Comedy Club, Adam Devine. Hey, we got any Adam Devine fans out there? Great. Well, you guys are going to love this joke. Yeah. So I'll be honest. I was an Adam Devine fan too. And my date, super fan. So I'm like, wonderful future boyfriend moves right here. So we go see Adam Devine. Take her to see Adam Devine. We go get a picture with Adam Devine after the show. I don't notice it, but a little bit, sometime during that picture, he whispers something to her. I don't think anything of it. We're walking back to my car. She stops mid-walk and she says, Adam Devine just invited me back to his hotel room. So I'm gonna go. Right? And the worst part about that date was the next day. Because I had to go to work the next day. And all my friends knew I was going on this date with this super hot woman I'd been trying to date for a while. So they all were like, oh, how was your big date? I mean, pretty good for her. If you think about it, objectively, we're 9 years in the future. She got to go see her favorite comedian. And then she got to go back to a hotel with her favorite comedian. And the saddest part is neither of those comedians were me. And it stinks because Adam Devine, he was a hero of mine. I liked him, and I love heroes. My favorite superhero is the Flash. And here's the thing about the Flash: he has a nemesis, an arch enemy called the Reverse Flash. And the Reverse Flash's deal is this: he used to idolize the Flash. He used to be such a big fan of the Flash, but then the Flash stole his moment of glory, and the Reverse Flash dedicated his entire life from that point on to wanting to kill the Flash. And as a kid, I used to think that was the dumbest storyline ever. But then I met Adam Devine. And now I think I'm Team Reverse Flash, the whole matter. And I know what you guys are thinking. Bro, this was 9 years ago. Maybe it's time for you to get over it. But little things keep happening that bring it back. So like 5 years ago, I was a youth pastor. I was teaching my Sunday school class. And my children were learning about God, hungry for the word. And then one kid says, hey, Drew, have you seen this new TV show called The Righteous Gemstones? He was like, it's awesome, man. You would love it. And you would relate so much to the youth pastor character. I was like, oh, cool. Who plays the youth pastor? He's like, Adam Devine. And then this little child of God had the audacity to say, yeah, I think he'd be a better youth pastor than you. So y'all, I did the most Christian thing I could think of, and I kicked him out of church in that moment. But now I'm a full-time comedian. And now my friends who are also full-time comedians, they're trying to help me get through this. They're trying to help me have a better perspective. So this is what they tell me. They said, Drew, you're looking at this all the wrong way. You're the full-time comedian now. You're performing at comedy clubs now. It's your turn to go perform at a comedy club and go back to your hotel with someone else's girlfriend. Yeah, I don't see that happening, guys. I think I need a more achievable goal, is what I think I need. You know what my achievable goal? I want to be the kind of comedian that can afford a hotel room. I think that's where I should go with that. That was either a good joke or like, you'll get there one day. I appreciate it though. I love performing comedy. It's one of my favorite things in the world. But I've had a moment of clarity I want to share with you all. And this is the moment of clarity. So in comedy, no matter how good or bad you're doing, you can always win the audience back. Like you could be bombing, but then you can relate to them and always bring them back. There's always a moment where you just can bring them back. And so as a comedian, you start getting this idea that in whatever conversation you're in, you can bring it back. If you're in an argument, you're like, I can win. I can get them on my side. And the problem is in life, that's not the case. sometimes there's no pleasing that person. We shouldn't be as big of people pleasers as we are. And that's something I'm working on, is trying to be less of a people pleaser. But comedy and ministry, and even my time in retail, all of those taught me to be the perfect people pleaser. But some people you can't please. And sometimes you're the problem. Like sometimes let's be honest, it's true. And I remember, so there was a time between youth ministry and stand-up comedy where I went back to my job as a cashier. And I had this huge moment of clarity with a customer that I had that like put this all in light for me, that you just can't please everybody, even if you think you can. So let me set the stage. I was a cashier, and this lady came through my line. Full disclosure, I thought she was a different customer who had just had a baby. So me being the endearing cashier that I always strive to be, she comes through my line and I said, "Hey, how's the new baby?" She said, actually, I don't have any kids, and me and my husband just learned that we can't have kids. And y'all, what I should have said was something like, "Oh, yeah, well, pass those bananas. I already know. Produce code 4011. Like, I got this." But as a comedian, I was like, I got this. This is like real life crowd work. I can win her back. So she said, "Yeah, I can't have kids." And I said, "Ma'am, there are so many moms out there that have kids that shouldn't. I wish I could go kidnap one of those kids and give it to you, because you would raise that baby with so much love and you would be such a great mommy." I thought that was pretty uplifting to say. She said, "Human trafficking is a huge problem in America, and I don't appreciate this joke." What I should have said was, "Your total is whatever." But deep in my soul, I'm a comedian. I can win her over. So she said, "Human trafficking is a huge problem." I said, "Yes, but silver lining, it's never a problem you have to deal with, so there's that." And then she said, "Can I speak to your manager?" And that is the day I became a full-time comedian. Thank you so much. I've been Drew. You've been absolutely fantastic.